Welcome. It's a bit of a gusty finish today, and the wind will be up the quick, men. I've got to tell you that, because it's time for our GC main contenders to play their hand. First, the big climbing days then on the Tour of Catalunya, heading out of Girona, and a sinuous course today with plenty of climbing. Right now, they're up the Alde de Toses. They will be heading to Molina, 2 times of asking at the end today after a circuit. And it's really going to be something of a test. Check out the altimetry. We're around 60 kilometers from home. And so that third peak from the end is what we're dealing with at the moment. Speeds up it, I've got to tell you, around 12 k's an hour. So it's a bit of a test. It's already accounted for a few big names, I can tell you. Weather absolutely beautiful today, despite the fact you may well see a little bit of snow being kicked up there. 3 Celsius at the line, 8 down in Alp where they start the climb itself. Nasser Bouhanni punching in the air after making it 2 in a row, missed 100% so far in the Tour of Catalunya. Some news on him in a few moments' time. But yesterday, inevitably, it was about the break and questions as to whether they would make it. Wide open highways. There's one man left at the end, and it was Thomas de original breakaway. He was finally wound in on the approach, and frankly, it didn't look overly energetic until we got to the end. There's no doubt about the sprint credentials of not only Bouhanni, but of course his team. And when the bearded figure of Geoffrey Soup hits the front, it's very difficult to get round him, to be honest. Away he went, and so did Bouhanni, and it was a tidy job. Meersman going better than he had to finish in second place ahead of a fast finishing Philippe Gilbert. Shatovic in 4th place. There we are. It's a tough day, he says. 2,000 metres of difference in height still to come. This he's talking about today's 3rd stage. Then the final. Yesterday the team launched me very well. It was a difficult finish. False rising dish, I think he's talking about. Well, he did the job. Started 200 metres and resisted until the end. So there is the leader's jersey. Sadly, you're not going to be seeing too much of it today. More on that in a moment. So they were setting up for today's stage. And the sign-on, Bouhanni resplendent in the green and white leader's jersey. But, of course, it's the main contenders, the GC boys, that we are starting to cast our minds towards. And definitely the focus of the course is that way as well. Geoffrey Soup, he may well have more fun if he gets through the mountains and heads off to the likes of Vals and maybe the Geltrú, where the sprinters might be engaged again. But unfortunately, I've got to tell you that Nasser Bouhanni will not be part of that. He's climbed off the bike during today's stage. This is as they were at the start line. And once again, there was a minute's silence called in memory of those who've lost their lives due to the terrorist attacks in Belgium.
Descansin en pau les víctimes dels atemptats de Brussel·les.
Impeccably adhered to. A lot of cyclists and, of course, cycle fans extraordinarily worried and concerned. It really does hit the heart of cycling whenever Belgium is in the centre of such a firestorm, as it were. So, underway at long last, but a chilly day. And as you can see, Cofidis leading out the leader's jersey. Sadly, you won't be seeing it again. Bouhanni has decided to step off the bike after being tailed off. Likewise, Tom Dumoulin went so well in last year's Vuelta, so Bouhanni in good company there, I guess you might say, but no longer part of proceedings. So job well done for Nasser Bouhanni, and now he heads off to prepare himself for some more quick days. Today, not supposed to be a quick day. It's about climbing. It's also about the huge names who've turned up to this race, and plenty of them have. In fact, it's almost easier to name the greats who are not here. So short is that list because so many of them have come along. Movistar haven't sent their A team, but they've sent their A rider, you might say, for this. Quintana and his men are doing the chasing. We've got a 7-man breakaway up the road, and they've had some fun today, although they are struggling right now on this incline that we're dealing with. It's the Alde de Toses. Once we've dealt with this, there's a long 18-kilometre descent after a brief plateau at the top where there'll be a feed station, so they'll take on what they need, and then the real action begins. They'll drop down to Alp and then kick up to La Molina. Famous climbs, been part of the Vuelta, and of course a regular part of this race, Catalunya. They'll skirt by just the last sort of 800 metres kilo of the finish and go back down, do the loop and come back up again, if that makes sense. So it's a very peaky day, and in fact we've got 3 categorised 1 climbs. That breakaway that we mentioned, still waiting for pictures of them to pick them back up, but they've certainly had a good roll today. They've been out there and taking on much of it. In fact, they contested the Alde de Coubet with a lead of 5 minutes. But, well, let's go through them as we stand. We're just looking at the Movistar team right now, but I think it's fair to tell you who is up the road because it's significant, even though we're not seeing the pictures. One of them is Julian Alaphilippe. Now, he is my pick as somebody to actually keep an eye on this year, just to see whether he's recovered from his mononucleosis, which is essentially glandular fever. Runner-up in Liège, Bastogne-Liège, Flèche Wallonne and the Amgen Tour of California, you may remember. That behind Rowan Dennis, who's exited this race, one of the other departees so far, with sickness, unfortunately, for Rowan. But Alaphilippe is here, and he's looking very, very good indeed. And here is our breakaway. Alaphilippe is Etixx-QuickStep, so wait to pick him out. That is Kevin Retzer, you're absolutely right, who's been doing some lead-out work in the sprints, but for Lorenzo Manzin, but he's allowed to have his fun up the peaks. There's Julian Alaphilippe, that sort of light, wiry figure. Now, breakaway riders have made it home in the past, so don't write them off just yet. So he's here as well. Lotto Jumbo also represented as Alaphilippe comes through. Looks the most comfortable on this climb, no surprise about that. CCC Sprandy in the Tangerine, that's Jan Hurt. Ron Potter here with Huub Duin. And as you can see, Dimension Data, all black, can't really see the white of the jersey, but that's Johan van Zyl, who took a stage in the Tour of Austria. In fact, he knows Jan Hurt from that. He went on to finish 3rd in the GC in that race. Cannondale represented by Alex Howes. Quality rider Alex Howes, 28 years of age, took a stage in the US Pro a couple of years ago, and 12th in the World Championships behind the victorious Peter Sagan. And to be 12th in the Worlds, you have to be a bit of a hard man, and Alex Howes, the American, is a hard man. Trouble for him is that today is a hard ask, especially if you're having to take your turns on the front. Retzer calling for a little bit of assistance, and as you can see, we're finding a little snow that still has to melt. Warm weather gear, keep the bugs at bay for Alaphilippe. It's around 2 Celsius at the top, and that would actually deliver quite a nice chilled wine, believe me. Well, we had a chat to quite a few of the principal riders earlier on, as we see a little push, and this is to get to the top of this King of the Mountains, Alde de Toses. It's 6.3 kilometres in length, and clearly Alex Howes has been cracked here, just very gently, I think it's fair to say. Pushing on and wanting some glory is Huub Duin. There he is, principal of Rompot Oranje Peloton. He'll go over the top, maybe tempted to take on a copy of La Marca and stick it down his jersey front, although I haven't seen too much of that going on of late. But he takes the maximum points at the top here as they roll over the Toses. So a little bit of respite. They've got a plateau. There's a feed station here as well, and they really can take their time. So it will be sustenance well delivered, I think. Magnus, today always going to demand a lot of the big names, and it's time to show who's got an interest in this race, I think.
I think you're right, Carlton. Is going to be the first showdown of this race, and with all the favourites as well. So I think there's certainly an awful lot of racing to come yet, and you know, with the bunch not going to let these guys stay out there for too long, I think.
I wonder if Alex Howes is just going to scoot through the feed zone. That's exactly what he's doing at the moment. He wants a gap.
Fabio, si inizia a fare sul serio, arrivano le montagne, come ti
This is
senti?
Fabio Ru from earlier on today. I feel good. It's a race I like. For the fourth time I'm here, and this edition is quite combative. A lot of champions are here, and today will be a good test for the future. A tough stage for the first two stages. We're very, very fast, so yeah, see what happens. So big attacks expected today. Sure, some Froome, Contador, Porte, Quintana. They will try and make the selection, try something for sure. How's your tour preparation going? Well, everything's going well. Very important for us, and we really expect to do our best. So, a man with big ambitions, Fabio Ru. Of course, he is a Grand Tour winner, but Tour de France is his target this time by. 55 kilometres to go. Now, Movistar's got to be careful here. They could be sacrificing themselves, potentially unnecessarily. Quintana clearly feels up for this, Magnus. They may not have sent their A-team, unlike, I suspect, Team Sky, but Movistar look reasonably comfortable and prepared to take on the work.
Well, I think Movistar have always got a good team that they're taking, so no doubt that they're up for it this time.
There we go. We'll take a brief break and we'll have Magnus's thoughts on the rest of them after this. Welcome back. This is a feisty push-on that we're engaged with right now out of the breakaway. Huub Duin has gone. So has, of course, Alex Houser, who just burst straight through the feed zone. He didn't want to hang around. And so he's light of sustenance. If they build a decent gap, then, of course, he'll be able to get serviced by his own car. He'll be called through. But for the time being, he may well be getting a bit thirsty. Huub Duin, who attacked and indeed beat Howes over the top, has got 2 full bottles there and indeed some gels, as you can see, sort of billowing out of his back pocket. I don't know whether he's going to share any of that, but highly unlikely. We'll see. The gap at the moment between this pair of the original 7 breakaway and indeed the Movistar-led peloton, who are going to have some fun on the descent. There's the remaining 5 of the breakaway after Howes and Duin just peeled off. So all things fracturing ever so slightly on the first of our major descents, and it's a long one, this, Magnus, 18k. You can make up ground if you're good at this. You certainly can. It's a relatively fast flowing descent, but also one where you have to sort of get on the pedals quite a bit, and usually a slightly bigger group tends to travel quicker down these type of descents than a 1 or 2 man setup, just because you can sort of slingshot past the guy in front of you, and that sort of drives up the pace a little bit. But at the same time, the 2 men out front are some serious descenders. They are very capable indeed. Certainly I know Huub Duin is very capable on this kind of stuff, having raced with him in the past. He's been around a while, Huub Duin. That's probably why you raced with him, actually. Thank you, Carlton. 31 years of age. I like to think of you as a fine wine as opposed to an old cheese, but thanks. There you go. Yeah, he's done some good work, particularly on the Tour of Luxembourg last year, so he's still got it, and this could be a fine day for him. This is La Molina. It's looking a bit patchy late in the season. It's not the highest altitude that ski resorts operate on, so a short season, which means not too many cafes. They can't make a living. But nonetheless, it's going to be a great day for our GC men potentially, but they're going to have to be careful. Take care. This stage has begged breakaways in the past, and some of them have been successful. We've had some great punch-ups as well, we remind you. Last year, Tejay van Garderen went on an early attack, and he had the humiliation of, or did mete out humiliation, I think, to some of the big names. Remember Richie Porte? He renewed his attack and went by Contador late on last year. That was pretty handy. Rodriguez in 2014 also. Froome was very aggressive that day in 2014. Rodriguez went, Contador, and very close at hand. So Rodriguez looked pretty handy and animated that. So it's a day that demands, it's a stage that demands action. We had a lone breaker when the Welter came here in 2001. I forget his name, but so this finish begs action, and maybe from not the pure climbers, because it's not exactly super alpine, is it?
No, it's not. It's not the steepest of climbs either. So it does lend itself well to some more, should we call it, powerful climbers rather than the sort of outright specialists. It's only about 4.5% average, but it gets relatively steep up towards the finish. We've got a couple of switchbacks, if I remember right, and you know, it's a tough old climb just because of the speed that they're travelling up there.
I was complaining about the microwave links here once. It was a few years ago. You've been on site as well, haven't you, for Catalonia?
I have, yes.
And yes, it in the past. Yes, and so it was broken, my Spanish, quite badly, almost as bad as the signal occasionally. The next day we had a microwave in the commentary position. That wasn't what I was talking about, but anyway, we had hot chorizo. 49 kilometres to go, and we're going at a fair old lick, as you can see, 75 k's an hour, in fact over 80 according to the speedo, so one of these is correct. I imagine it's probably the data here. Speedometers on vehicles generally tend to tell you going a bit faster than you actually are. Don't know why. It's sort of a safety zone that they build into it. Anyway, 81 k's an hour they just nudge into right now. What was your fastest on a descent, Magnus?
127.
Were you actually touching tarmac at the time?
Just about.
We've got Robert Hetsink coming up, and then we'll start going through who are likely to be contenders today, shall we? Here's Rob.
Robert, we arrive on the big stages of this Volta Catalunya. How do you feel?
So far good. I mean, today is a big day, really important day for the classification, I think. I've done the course in training from here, starting in Girona, so it will be really, really hard.
Okay, can you describe a bit this stage? It's not the same Molina than usual, a bit less hard.
Yeah, already the climb before La Molina is pretty hard. It's steep, called Toses, and then we'll do 2 laps in La Molina, and I think it will be really hard because of the repeat of all the climbs, and in the end everybody will be really tired.
What will be the strategy in the team? We know you lose already one leader with Wilco Garderen, but there's still a strong team.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, of course I will try to do GC, so stay as long with the best guys as possible, and if there's an opportunity to attack, for sure we will try with Kruiswijk and Roglic, and then of course tomorrow is again a hard stage. So I think today it will be a race between the contenders for GC, and they will go for the stage victory, I guess.
If they can stay safe and indeed stay motivated. Nacer Bouhanni has decided to step off the bike, and in so doing we have no leader at the moment, essentially. So we will have a new leader at the end of the day. But Tom Dumoulin, who went well in last year's Vuelta, so you'd expect on Spanish terrain for him to fly as well, is also out. We understand not very well. We've had a few that have been sick, to be honest. Not quite sure whether that's just early season bugs that are still circulating, and when you're flying around the world, there's a lot of riders are at the moment. They do a little bit in Australia, some elsewhere in the South Americas, and then all of a sudden you get a cold environment. 2 Celsius today is chilly. It can bring on a little bit of illness at the top of the year.
It definitely can, but you know the problem is always getting cold after the stages and traveling down to the hotel and so on. And also when you're doing these mountain stages, you tend to still sweat quite a bit climbing, and then all of a sudden you've got to descend, and with only 2 degrees, you know, it's actually minus degrees by the time you're putting 80 kilometers an hour of wind coming at you. So
well, you're climbing at 12 k's an hour on a toughish climb, and then descending at 80. That's going to be a factor, isn't it?
It definitely will be. So it is difficult, but then sometimes, you know, if you're unlucky, you eat something that's not quite right with your stomach and so on. So it's not easy.
Well, they're shooting the breeze up front, and I guess they are also rolling the dice. We'll take a break, and we'll be back in a few moments. Welcome back. We're still tracing 2-day leaders here, and we'd love to give you a gap, but there's no data. We'd also love to show you some pictures from the peloton, but there's a breakdown, unfortunately, with the link, and so we haven't got a helicopter shot either. So for the time being, we're just sticking with these 2 guys who are busy engaged in some suffrage, or suffering. 42 kilometres from home, little plateau within the descent here that extends over 18 kilometres. They'll get all the way down to Alp, and two brave souls have decided to push away from a 7-man break. Alex Howes just sped through the feed zone. He's getting service now because his car has been called up, which means that the gap is reasonably significant. It's 1 minute and 50 back to the chasing peloton. There are an intermediate group which were part of the original breakaway. They're down to 4. We haven't had any pictures of them. And in fact they're back to the original 5. So somebody must have just well, I think that tells you all you need to know about the cold. He's got white finger essentially.
Yeah, it's never nice when you're descending like this, but it's like I said earlier, having this cold weather, you still get hot climbing, and then you've got to descend off the back of that, and all of a sudden it's -degrees, and nothing really works when you come down onto the flat. You know, your body is just basically in a frozen lump of ice.
Well, Alaphilippe is clearly not overly delighted. That was Van Zyl of Dimension Data just handing over a bit of energy to Jan Hertz, just saying I'm going to drop in the back here and just hand it over, hand it off essentially, but nothing untoward. You see it an awful lot, and I don't think there would have been any complaint either from Jan Hertz, who accepted that energy. There is Kevin Retzer at the back, who's been doing some terrific lead-out work for Manzin. It'll be interesting to see how Cofidis reassemble themselves now that Nasser Bouhanni, the race leader, has stepped off the bike today. Koen Bouwman has just gone through as well for Lotto Soudal. We heard from Robert Jessink at the top of the show, saying how he's reasonably motivated on what is going to be a big day. And finally we get pictures hooked back up to the peloton who are chasing on, and still it's Movistar that are doing much of the work. Sky have been resting in just for the time being. Once they came through the feed zone, they've eased back a bit. They're within the main body, but just to the fore of that, I guess you might say. But it's all being led at the moment by Movistar. They're okay with burning personnel at moments such as this, because Quintana often likes to function alone when it gets to the high mountains. They've got other help, guys who can go very well when the road kicks up, and it will do again on 2 occasions. But Quintana clearly feels well today. He's calling for this. Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. But a team like Movistar, and well, just about any of their riders go well enough uphill to actually give Quintana a decent hand. Certainly, maybe not all the way up to the top, but certainly a long way up it. And by the time I think we get to certainly to the foot of the last time up La Molina, we will see all sorts of fireworks. But there may potentially be someone actually going for a bit of a move already on the first time up La Molina. You know, there's not an awful lot of sort of work in between on the flat. It's just up to La Molina, straight down the other side, and then back up again. So, you know, it provides a good little opportunity to go for a longer attack.
Well, we've seen it in the past, and I think somebody may be tempted from this group. Why not Alaphilippe? If the main players start to look at each other and don't really want to offer any assistance to each other, essentially won't lead out any kind of chase down, it can open it up, as it did for Tejay van Garderen a couple of years ago. And Tejay might have an option, of course, yet again. He's certainly amongst the favourites. Richie Porte, though, we'll see whether he manages to pick it up. Chris Froome, I think, starts as our favourite. Geraint Thomas within his own team. Wout Poels as well. They've got Kirienka, the powerhouse, to drive them into the climb. Contador, Romain Bardet, maybe. I mean, it's so tempting just to sort of launch in and start talking about the feast of climbing we're going to have. But it might not be that way. Somebody might mug them today.
Well, you never know, and it's certainly, like I said, there's a couple of opportunities coming up here. But if you're looking at Team Sky and BMC Racing, they're clearly going to want to put a bit of pressure on the other teams, certainly on Tinkoff and Movistar. So with that, you may actually see someone like Geraint Thomas and Tejay van Garderen going already on this next climb, and putting a bit of pressure on the rest of the guys. But and then hopefully, ideally, just leaving Chris Froome and Richie Porte then to sort of look after what's happening in the bunch, and that really would put this race, in a very strange situation, but a very good one at that.
Good approach, quick approach from Orica Green Edge, who in their familiar white, blue, green and yellow, they're just edging up to the side of Movistar, and I think Esteban Chavez wants to have a proper look at today. He is a diminutive figure, but Mr. Smiley, as we were calling him last year, he's such an engaging character. Yeah, why not he as one of the surprises today? What about Louis Mainkeys, the man who left Dimension Data, MTN Quebec as it was, and decided to head off for Lampre Merida, caused heartbreak. Ryan Smith spat his porridge that morning when Louis announced that he was off, because he'd been really guided and nurtured by MTN Quebec, and for my mind, possibly a bad move. We'll see.
I've got to agree with you on that one. I'm not sure that was very good.
Well, he was really nurtured, wasn't he? And now he's got to deliver, I guess. He's got a chance today. "31 seconds they've got to the chasers. A little bit more to those behind. But that's our duo, our brace up front. Just coming through Alp. The aptly named. I guess it was so cold when they did name it, they just thought of the most obvious thing. 37 kilometres remaining. Doesn't sound like a lot, but there's two dirty great lumps in the way. Twice up La Molina, and that's no laughing matter.
Not far from it, but like I said, there's also an awfully long descent that they have to deal with as well. So Hugh not looking all that good going up this hill, though. He's been back to the medical car and had a few chats with them, so clearly he's got some sort of issue going on.
In his back pocket you can see a tin of Coca-Cola as well. There are other soft drinks and indeed other cola drinks available. But nonetheless, sometimes when you need cheering up, you allow yourself a little fizzy drink, and he clearly needs cheering up.
Well, I think he's relatively happy having picked up the points on the last climb there, so you know, he's certainly looking good, looking as fit as I've seen him in some time.
Visit to the medical car, what do you think the issue might be?
I don't know, it might be just stomach cramps, and you know, when the cold tends to play a bit of havoc with your stomach as well. So a lot of the stomach issues that we've had reported over the last couple of days, it may actually just be because it is quite cold out there, and as your stomach gets chilled down on the way off a mountain, then you know,
you can cramp as well,
you
can't
can
you?
cramp
The muscles
up with
really
that,
cool down. There's Alex Howes up towards the front. There's Kevin Retzer as well from Francis Desjeux. These are, I was going to say, the remnants of the breakaway, but they're still holding their own just for the time being. No real attack has been launched behind them, but the pace of the peloton, considering that the gap to the breakaway was up to around 12 minutes, reportedly at one time. We're not quite sure whether to trust the data, but they said 12 minutes early on in the day, so we'll go with it. Yeah, we'll see how the chase engages. For the time being, it appears, or it's being reported, it's full on. Now, what are you going to see that high up? You ask the helicopter. Well, there are some areas which are declared of natural beauty, and there's natural fauna down there, as in little beasts, and apparently the helicopter has to stay away from them for fear of frightening them. There we are. Max looking nonplussed, but there we are. Yes, I believe it's early breeding season for all kinds of animals, and so they tell a helicopter to get lost. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us a long view, so I'm hoping that they'll be back with them again fairly soon when they're out of the protected zone.
I thought it was quite a nice, picturesque sort of shot, that one, though.
Well, it cost them a lot of money to have Avo fuel to get up there. I'd like them to come back down and give us another view, if they wouldn't mind. 36 kilometres remaining, and two almost lost souls, would you say? Alex Howes is a tough guy, 12th in the World Championships. You don't get that close to what was a punishing finale without being pretty handy, and Alex Howes, the American, is exactly that.
Yeah, he's certainly a strong rider, there's no doubt about that. And you know, I think that when we start the climb up to La Molina here, I think Alex is going to have to start sort of really pressing on, unless you got 10k to the top. So Alex is going to have to press on quite a bit now, because we've got a strong chasing group, and the peloton are definitely not going to hang about on these next number of climbs.
So out of Alp, off the highway and onto a more modest road, as you can see. Now, the descent they've just done, they'll be doing again. once they loop round this mountain. They're going to go up to the top, but not quite take on the finish. They won't go over the start-finish line, essentially, or the finish line. They will go up for 10, down for 12, and then up for 8, taking a different approach to the finish for the last 3 kilometres. So, hope I've explained that well. Nonetheless, they're climbing. That's all you need to know for the time being, and it maxes at 8%. Today is, what, 172 kilometres in total distance, and it's going to feel a lot more than that because 4 Category 1 climbs will start to have an impact. And just look at Alex Howes out of the saddle. He's hoping to do what Bardet did in the Dauphiné a couple of years ago. That's to go over the top, hit the descent, and then carry just enough energy into the final climb to make it count. Unfortunately for him, he's got Julian Alaphilippe, who looks pretty resurgent, to be honest, in Etixx-QuickStep. Looking very handy. So it might be an Alaphilippe day and not a Dan Martin day. Sorry to have upset some of you with that thought, but welcome back. Now that we've descended from the zone of the mountain foxes and chamois, I don't know what they call them here actually, sort of squirrels that are white.
Let's call them squirrels.
White squirrels. Apparently they make for really nice hats. Well, in the old days, obviously, they're protected now, so don't think about that one, kids. But anyway, so the helicopter's back with us, which is great, having flown
I'm not
over.
sure I can picture you in one of them.
Think Davy Crockett without the stripes. That was a raccoon, apparently. Our American friends will tell us. Is it a hiding for nothing, or to nothing, for these guys? They are going up La Molina. Now, it's 10 kilometres in length, only averages 4.5, and so it does beg some explosive responses occasionally. But the main peloton have to get back to those who are up the road. And right now, we've got 2 up the road being chased or pursued by what is a whittling down. Should we put it that way? That looked like Jan Hurt was doing exactly that. He was yanning. No, he was hurting.
Yeah, I think he was hurting, yeah. Oh dear.
Eyebrows. I'm getting eyebrow semaphore from Magnus. I'll carry on. 34 kilometres remaining. These two. Hope in hell?
Well, there's always a hope. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's going to be a difficult one as the bunch gets in onto this climb and really starts pressing on a bit. Because I think, you know, for Quintana to really have a good opportunity up this climb the last time, he needs to soften up a few people and you know, to really keep it a good pace up there. And the last thing you want to do is really come in with a whole team of Team Sky. Certainly, if you're looking on the paper there, that is an incredible lineup that they've taken down here with Michael Nieve, Wout Poels, Nicola Roche, Kirienka and Boswell as well. That, you know, they can set a very strong pace on this climb. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, indeed. And we'll see whether Rompot can make it 2 guys up the road. Why not? They've come here with a little bit of ambition. I think when you get a Pro Continental team faced with the absolute world's best, you want to strut your stuff, show what you can do and measure yourself against those great names. And that's what we're seeing going on right now.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly we've got to say it's a smaller Pro Continental team as well, Rompot. And with that, this is probably at the top end of the races that they're gonna do. So when you get an opportunity like this, you got to take it with both hands and get out there and actually make the race, create the race. You don't necessarily need to walk away with the with top results, but certainly put enough pressure on the race and put yourself into breakaways and be part of it. That tends to really give the race organisers something back. And you know, we should look at Rompot as well. They got a pretty solid name in terms of the climb, and someone that I know you've been looking up a bit as well.
Peter Weening, I don't know whether it is actually him that's just peeled off the nose or not, but I would.
It looks a bit too big for
too leggy for him. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's Johnny Hoogeland either. But when you start saying Peter Weening, you start saying Johnny Hoogeland, you start saying to yourself, you know, this is a pretty handy outfit.
Yeah, well, it definitely is. I think Johnny Hoogland, when he was at his best, definitely someone who could be up here and contend with these guys. Now, he's had a really tough time, mentally, probably more than physically, since he had
the incident.
The incident with the barbed wire. He's really struggled to get him to get back into full fitness again.
How many years ago was it now? Was it 2012?
Yeah, something like that.
I think it was. Johnny Hoogland essentially was hit by a television car and ended up, along with Juan Antonio Fletcher, in barbed wire, but a barbed wire fence. The car was overtaking when it really shouldn't have done. It was a French television car, I think I'm allowed to say, and avoided a tree, but didn't avoid the riders. And unfortunately, it went to court, and there was a lot of proceedings, and compensation was paid, but not terribly much. It wasn't like being a defamed movie star, that level. It was very much modest, as far as I can gather, and not revealed. And Johnny Hoogland, who would have gone into the King of the Mountains competition. I thought from the front shot he looked like a taller man than Peter Weening. He's not that small. He's 186, which I suppose, yeah, think again. 1 meter 86, what's that? 6'4", 6'2" in old money?
Yeah.
Something like that. So, yeah, Peter Weening it is. Won the Tour of Poland 2 years ago, and he's had stage wins, of course, on the Giro d'Italia. He's had some terrific ones as well. The one where I think it was into Orvieto in 2011. But he's had some pretty handy results nonetheless. Up this kind of and on this kind of terrain, so clearly he was supposed to be part of the vanguard. He's got a man up the road, so why not try and join him? And you never know, maybe just have some glory.
Question is now if Hoobdoon has got any legs left to give Peter a bit of a turn on the front here.
Yeah,
Hoob just going up through the block now and just trying to pick up the pace and get himself in front of Peter Weening, and just to go as hard as he can for as long as he can. And just give Weening that little bit of respite.
When you have a double peak at the end of the day, the penultimate peak, to my mind, if it's an uphill finish, which essentially this is, it begs an attack on that penultimate climb, and that's the battle plan for Peter Weening, and he's done it before. And look at How's struggling as these guys just roll away.
Yeah, How's definitely in a bit of trouble there, even throwing one of his bottles away. But that was one turn from Hoobdoon, and he only lasted for about 400 metres.
Weening has gone. He's hoping to do a Romain Bardet from the Dauphiné a couple of years ago. He's going on the penultimate climb. Is it going to be a long race to glory or to sheer hurt? 33 kilometres is how long he's got to think about it. Basically, he's got to get to the top of this. He's got another 8 Ks to go. Then he has some respite with a long descent before he has to do it all again. Well, they've sent the helicopter high away from the mountain squirrels once again. Apparently it's breeding time of year and they don't want to disturb them, so quite far away, but our man who's operating the lens is doing his best to pick it out on this lovely, beautiful day. Have to say it's spectacular here.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see there with Hoobdoon getting on the front and doing a turn. All he's been out in the break all day, and I mean Hoob is a decent climber, and Peter Weening certainly in his best days was a very strong climber. So Hoob managed to do about 400 meters on the front for Peter, and Peter's just continued in that tempo. So it kind of gives you the difference between a very strong climber and an okay climber.
Well, he is a very strong climber. He's also 34 years of age, so his best days, you might say, are probably behind him, but this could be one of the best days ever if he manages to get bragging rights over, and it's a roll of honour, which is quite outstanding. Froome, Contador, Aru, Quintana, and guess what? The A-team are starting to play their hand, and there's Chris Froome just rolling dead centre or within the middle of what is a very capable team, as we know. Are they going to have the bullying of everybody? They suddenly realise that Weening is actually worth chasing down, and it's they that are setting the tempo, hoping to tee up Chris Froome for glory later on today.
Well, if nothing else, to start to shed a few bodies out the back of the peloton to drop it down to a smaller bunch as possible, and interesting to see all 8 of the Sky riders, if I didn't miscount that completely, but it certainly looks like it's 8 riders on the front there now.
There's nobody spare, is there? There's nobody taking any rest here.
No,
this is about imposing themselves to shake out any of those explosive riders we're talking about being tempted to have a go.
Yeah, definitely. Even Ben Swift being part of this lineup here now and putting the pressure on. So, you know, it's certainly a very impressive outfit that they got.
Yeah, nice to see Geraint Thomas looking so relaxed, just taking a feed. Froome with his traditional riding style, just rolling with it. But you don't win the Paris-Nice and as a slouch. And honestly, Geraint Thomas is in sparkling form at the moment, isn't he?
He's going very well indeed. It'll be interesting to see what Geraint can do with the rest of the season. But he's, you know, he came to light last year really with his stage racing and running in, you know, top position in the Tour de France for such a long period of time, and then I think the first week in the work that Geraint had to do in the first week took the toll out of him in the final couple of days. But I think this year is Team Sky are going to go into the Tour de France with a two-man kind of possible attack, and certainly leaving Geraint there as a backup should something happen to Chris Froome. So you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Let's see. That was, of course, Huub Doyne and Alex House just giving each other a little fist pump there. So well done, fella. It's amazing actually when you never forget moments such as that. Deep in later on, after their careers are finished, if they ever bump into each other, they'll remind themselves of this particular day. It's what happens.
Well, it does, yes. Yeah. So certainly some of the days when you know, you've had a big epic day out in the breakaway, then you tend to remember that for quite some time.
So nice to see Chris Froome back in action. I know he was there at the Herald Sun Tour, but honestly this is an entirely different level, and some would say that Chris Froome is at an entirely different level, full stop. Contador will be out to stop him, so will Richie Porte, of course, the man who used to be such a solid ally for him. Tejay van Garderen is here to do damage. Nairo Quintana called for action earlier on. One man has decided to do things all on his own. You're looking at him right now, it's Peter Weening. But there's no doubt that Chris Froome is here. He's fit as well after coming with illness to this very event in the past. Finished 71st last year, we remind you. Just hobbled by some kind of bug. Well, he's smiling. He is happy, and he's got an extraordinarily effective team around him. Now they've got to catch Peter Weening and just make sure that they put enough hurt on everybody else, the explosive riders, people like Dan Martin, people like Joaquim Rodriguez maybe, who can turn it on in huge bursts on the sort of inclines that we're dealing with today. Well, Chris Froome doesn't want that to happen, and he has called for action, and he has got it as Weening continues his push.
Well, looking at the average gradient on this particular climb, it's only about 4.5%. Okay, there is a bit of a dip at the top before you actually go towards the finish, but I think this type of gradient really favours a rider like Geraint Thomas compared to probably Chris Froome, to be honest. Froome prefers when it's a bit steeper, and
well, if you take the riding order, it looks like Geraint Thomas is just making sure his feed is going to the right place. He's making sure he's nice and relaxed. Everyone seems to be doing the work for him, including Chris Froome just for the time being, but that may well be just an entire piece of kidology. You are mindful that the teams at this level are watching the same pictures that we are, and the riders do send messages and indeed fake it a bit sometimes just to affect the strategy of those around them.
Yeah, well, it's all a big poker game at the end of the day, isn't it?
That's what's so great about it, apart from the end.
Yeah.
30k's to go, and just easing themselves into the inclines. Sky make it look easy, don't they?
Well, they do, and they have such a strong climbing team, and certainly have sent probably their A team pretty much to this particular race. So you'd be surprised to see it any other way, and they always tend to ride on the front like this. So it's I'm not at all surprised.
Well, if it is the A team, Mr. T, Geraint G, it could be him. 29 kilometres to go. you'd have to be watching some pretty old TV to know what on earth I'm talking about. Nice to see some sharp shadows today. Another beautiful day. We've had miserable conditions on occasion for Catalunya, but they seem absent at the moment. And this is a decent gap by Wiening. Let's talk about possibilities, shall we then? He's got 4 kilometres to go before he starts. In fact, before then, he'll be on a descent. Then it picks up again to La Molina. So he goes into a little bowl. So he goes into the bowl, comes up to the lip, and then he heads down for a 12k descent. So, in fact, he's only, to my mind, probably, well, he's nearly at the peak, essentially, although it's a secondary sub-peak that actually climbs as the top of the climb. So he'll go over the lip, into the bowl, up a lesser lip, and then he starts his descent. So he's nearly at this long 12 introduction of downhill where he'll be shaking out his legs and hoping he can blast it up La Molina for one more time and maintain that gap.
Yeah, well, it's going to be difficult. There's no doubt about that one. With the riders chasing him, he's going to have to really press on hard and take all the risks on the descent as well.
Here's our fake sumo man. Or maybe it's real and he's just got really lumpy skin. I'm not sure. Peter Wiening is going for this. He's a veteran, and don't discount that. We've seen some great things for some of those riders who, to be fair, towards the end of their careers. Are we allowed to say that? Chris Horner, notably, also doing it in Spain. Why not Wiening today? It would be a great notch on his palmares.
Yeah, no doubt. It is a World Tour race. It is one of the bigger races of certainly of the early part of the season. So taking a stage win in Volta Catalunya is it's no mean feat. So, but I think the biggest thing for someone like Peter Wiening here would be that he's showing that he's back at a high level competing with the best riders in the world. I probably would have liked to have seen him actually wait a little bit longer, wait for the favourites to start moving and see whether he could actually follow them, compete with them on the final ascent.
Well, he was with Orica, of course, for how many seasons was it? 4, something like that. One of the chosen sons of Rabobank, that great team that sadly just fell out of love with cycling and the sponsors, I should say.
Although they're still sponsoring a women's team.
They are, indeed, and indeed a youth team. But did I hear that they're pulling the sponsorship of the women's team as well? I may have been misguided, though. I'll double check. So forgive me if I'm in error. But yes, certainly decided that the men's scene was not for them this time by. That's his rain cape, by the way. He's not suffering a big split, just in case you were worried. And that is Jordi Simon, I believe, and wrestling with it. Well, we've had a few who have had some issues, and I must admit, I thought that Jordi Simon of the Vera Active Jet Po cycling team, this is unexplored country for him as far as I can gather, but the Pole is doing a decent job. I think he was listed as Spanish there for some strange reason, but we move on. 27 k's to go. I don't have hopes for that move, if it is one. Couldn't quite see where he was on the road. Sky, though, still in policing duties, and Chris Froome's not a bad descender, he's had some, and to my mind, the last couple of seasons he's actually improved a lot. It's not his favourite thing, though.
No, it's probably not, but you got to remember Chris Froome is a very good bike rider, regardless of what terrain you put him on, really. If you're going to be if you're going to be a Tour de France winner, then you need to be able to descend with the best guys and maybe not the absolute best descenders, but not far from it. Certainly when you got Nibali in the mix of things, you got to be able to follow someone like him down, because you can't afford to let Nibali get a couple of minutes on you on a descent, because you're not going to see him more that day. And with that, he has to be able to do this as well. So Chris Froome certainly a very, very all-round quality bike rider.
Jordi Simon as well is he's zipping around the curves here. He's supposed to be a quick man, Jordi, but he's clearly happy in this sort of environment. I wonder if he trains locally. It doesn't sound like a particularly Polish name, I must admit, despite the fact he's listed as Polish. Maybe the graphics man got it right. We'll double check in a few moments' time. 27 Ks to go. There is the pursuer. He's a minute and 4 down, with Sky reasonably close at hand. I think he's only got a couple of, well, maybe 100 metres on the chasers as we stand. But with 27 to go, it suggests that this is that little kick up, by the way, the pickup that we're on right now. And he'll start to descend in about 2 K's time. So we've just sailed by what will be our turn for the finish today, Magnus. So at least they'll know the descent, and they'll also know most of the climb.
Yeah, they will do, definitely. I think Simon is doing a good job there, but he's not actually gaining all that much ground on the peloton, so nor is he getting too much closer to Peter Weening. He seems to have found a nice good rhythm here, and he's just working away.
He is working absolutely brilliantly at the moment. Sails into town, tries to avoid the flags, and everyone in fancy dress, of which there seems to be quite a few today. It's clearly cold. It doesn't have to be that cold for Spaniards to reach for the anorak, but it is around 2 Celsius today, so really very, very nippy. And this man is in his pomp. There you go. He goes over the lip. He takes the KOM. Thank you very much. A whole rack of points for a Category 1, and now he starts a 12-kilometre long descent. In terms of climbing, he's only got 8 more Ks of climbing left on this day. So, and then he'll have what that little bowl to deal with, and we'll talk you through that when we get there, because that's reasonably technical. It has some rises and falls in it, and some nasty little stings at the very end. You do finally get to enjoy yourself at the very last, but there's a lot of work to be done before we get there, and Sky are doing a lot of it at the moment.
Yeah, Sky clearly decided that this is the time to pick it up and take control of the bunch. Not a bad idea with the descent coming up here now, but you know, it's not. They haven't really hit full throttle yet, if that's the way to put it.
Well, I think they're cycling well within themselves at the moment. It'd be nice to see a permanent graphic telling us what the gap is, so that we can see if they're closing or not. It should be a necessity rather than a luxury, that kind of information, to be honest. But it's something that we'll just hope for. I'm sure we'll get a visual by the time we get a little bit closer to the line, but for the time being, Peter Weening is doing an absolutely stellar job. He's up the road. He's being chased by Jordi Simon. But right now, there you can see, there is the man who is heading for a test. Whether he passes it or not remains to be seen. It's a long, not terribly technical descent that they're on at the moment. The speeds will be high. Let's hope everyone stays safe. It's a, my goodness, bunny hops. How far did he clear that? He did the entire 3-metre long sleeping policeman in one jump, as far as I could gather, not touching the tarmac. Remarkable.
Arrivano le montagne, si inizia a fare sul serio, come ti senti?
Ma io sto bene, diciamo che non ho potuto testarmi alla TV.
He says I'm good. Couldn't test myself. Well, we didn't hear terribly much of that, did we? There we go. Apologies for that. Maybe we'll have a bit more from him later on.
Jordi Simon is actually Spanish.
There we are. I did think Jordi, which is Spanish for George, Catalan for George. Thanks to Lee Sawbridge for that. And it kind of said border country, didn't it? Simon being vaguely French. But anyway, yes, apparently our start list is in error.
Yeah.
So Jordi Simon, tell us about him.
Tell us about him. He's currently on, well, he did 1 year in 2011 with Caja Rural, one of the Spanish teams, actually 2 years, and then it's been back on to some smaller teams for a while, riding for Ecuador.
He actually won Castilla-Leon.
Castilla-Leon, yes.
A few years ago, so
yeah.
Should have rung loud in our mind. Apologies for Jordi, I was misguided by them declaring he was Polish. We'll take a break while we settle our minds. Jordi Simon, the 25-year-old Spaniard, is hoping to recreate some modest glory days. The Castilla-Leon that he won in 2013, it didn't exactly have a stellar lineup, but we've got one today. And as you can see, I think he's had his fun. sort of done it for Vera Active Jet Pro Cycling. That's his team. So job well done as far as that's concerned, but now he just gets reabsorbed by what looks like an express train coming through at the moment, and we are climbing, as you can see, they're out of the saddle. They're on that little sub-peak while our friend Peter Wiening is having some fun. There's a little ramplet throughout this, sort of flattens out a little bit. A couple of steps, that's the easiest way of describing it. When we get to the bottom of this descent, however, we're going to have 10 Ks of climbing with that bowl to deal with at the top, which we go into and then out, with a more focused end to the day. Magnus, let's talk about those last 3 kilometres. I know it's a long way to come, but that's really going to be a crucial part of today.
Yeah, it is. The final kilometre is, well, not even the final 500 metres is really quite difficult and relatively steep as well. So you're going to have to sort of save a bit of powder dry for the last 500-600 metres. It descends from about 3 kilometres down to 2k, and then gradual incline, probably about 4% or so, and then it kicks up then again with around about 500 metres to go until, let's put it down to probably about 150 metres from the line. Yeah,
you sort of go over the top, and then there's a little roller coaster ride into the line. So the nasty section is averaging, it's only about 100 and, about 350 metres. It's 7%. And at the end of a long day like today, that's going to hurt. And then you drop down the last 150 essentially to the line. So again, a little bit of a roller coaster, but also with 100 metres to go, there's a hairpin. Yeah. And don't be surprised if it's decided on that turn.
Well, it's been decided just before that turn on a number of occasions, and you're going to have to, like I said, keep a fair amount of power left for that kick into that final turn, and you have to go first into that to be able to win the stage.
Have a gel sling. Needs a bit of energy.
Could be an expensive gel, that one, because of being inside the final 20 kilometres as well.
Well, there we are. It may cost quite a few Swiss francs, which is what fines are imposed in. The way the Swiss francs have moved against the euro these days and all other currencies, it makes it even more expensive. You see, I know what they're doing. Having a big chat here. He's a man who doesn't really need too much strategy imposing upon him, because he's had such a long career. He knows what he's got to do, essentially. All he needs is encouragement.
Yeah, at this point it's just a question of what he's got left in his legs, and with the wind that is out here today as well, it tends to be well, it certainly looks like it's a lot harder, because this should be a relatively fast road, slight sort of falls flat descending. You should be well into the 65-70 kilometers an hour, but this looking like he's struggling to pick it up to 50.
Yeah, let's have a look. As the camera pulls back, you'll see the chasers on his case, and indeed they've got a visual on him right now, because this road is reasonably straight, just a gentle kink to it as it hugs what is a mountain runoff, as in water runoff gully down there. Dry for the time being, because most of the snow has of course gone. Looking at the peloton right now and looking through and seeing who's likely to have some options today. Why not AG2R La Mondiale? Romain Bardet is the sort of explosive rider who can go for it if big names start looking at each other. I think Sky's got the sort of firepower on board to make this count. And look at the green, the lime green as well, next to the yellow of Tinkoff. Who are they thinking about today? It might be Canada's Michael Woods, who's had some fantastic results of late. He went well at the Tour Down Under, the Canadian. But what about Rigoberto Urán rekindling his challenge?
Well, I think Rigoberto is going to be the one that they are putting all their hopes on, but you kind of need a couple of backup plans as well, and why not? I certainly think that Urán is going to be the man.
I think he's going to be the man. I think he may well be today. I was also thinking that Louis Mankies might have an option for Lampre Merida, but I'm struggling to find the pink and blue of his team. We went to a break when we were talking about Louis, the fact that he had left MTN Quebec, which became Dimension Data, a team where he was very much part of their principal plans when it came to the mountains. And it almost felt unkind of him to be tempted, to allow himself to be tempted elsewhere. And he's buried himself in a team where there are plenty of other choices, and I'm not sure it's a great idea for him to have gone.
No, and I think the setup that well, the Dimension Data have now is good for younger riders and riders who are certainly still massively on their way up in their careers. And you know, sometimes it's easy when you sort of your contract is up and you're waiting for renewal. You know, you get other offers, and if there's a couple of extra sort of numbers next to the on the contract, then you know you tend to go there. But I think that for most people, it's and most of the time you got to make sure that where you go and that they haven't got a handful of riders that do exactly the same thing as you do, but you actually end up in a position where they do need you at the races, and certainly for a certain amount of races that you are the man in the team that they're going to look after. And I don't know whether with Lampre Merida it's sort of sometimes they do things really, really well, and other times they just seem to lack a bit of direction.
Louis 24, the South African, now with Lampre. 28 seconds is what Peter Wiening's got. What's his task? He has to crest the penultimate peak, if you like. He's going to be climbing on his own fairly soon. He's on this false flat, and look at the skirmishing, so many options. And Dan Martin's boys, Etixx-QuickStep, want to join the party, Magnus.
Well, we only got about 4 kilometers now until they start to climb up to La Molina again. So everyone is now starting to look for position going into the bottom of the climb, and let's face it, you need to be if not on the front, but very, very close to it when you start to climb. Otherwise, you're going to have to make up a certain amount of road before you can actually get into contention with the big guns. And Team Sky is still bossing this on the front and making sure that they have got everyone where they want them.
Trying to mix it in with Chris Froome's Sky boys, Katusha, and of course they're thinking about having a representative to help out Joaquim Rodriguez. They've also got Zakarin, who can go very, very strongly at moments such as this. AG2R La Mondiale are in the house as well, so are plenty of others, including I Am Cycling have decided that they would like maybe Maddie Frank to have a go today. We'll see, maybe one of their other choices. 14 Ks to go for this man though. It's still not climbing yet, Magnus, but it's approaching right now.
Well, we're only a couple of kilometers away from the bottom of the climb here, but if we go back to Katusha, you mentioned Rodriguez and Zakarin. What we should remember as well, they got Rain Tarme in there as well, who's not a bad climber. You got Anton Vorboyev, who's goes well. Alberto Lozada as well, who can certainly give them a good hand. So they got a strong lineup here at this race. We still haven't mentioned at all Fabio Aru with all of his team. Tanel Kangatira, Paolo Tiralongo, Dario Cataldo, Malacarne.
Oh, no. And it's not Louis, is it? 13 Ks to go, and we've got our Lampre rider on the deck. Got a very, very brief look to see who it was, and I think it might have been Louis Meintjes. Goodness me. Well, there was some battling for position there as we came into Alp, because it's the introduction to the climb, and no surprise if there was a touch of wheels. It's been strung out though. Safety first for Sky. They've gone to the fore. This is to look after Chris Froome. It's to look after Geraint Thomas. They've got Nieve. They've got plenty of others who can impose themselves on a climb such as this. Fireworks there will be, and we're about to make the turn. Wiening is holding on for the time being for Roompot and doing a great individual job. There he is on the left-hand side of your screen. And there's kind of been a reassembly, as you can see, as the road starts to get mobbed, and Sky just ease off the pace ever so slightly at this moment. 19 seconds only is the advantage of Wiening. I don't think he's got a hope here.
I really don't think so either. It's too much work for Peter Wiening to hold off the big guns when they're coming down. They've been sitting back here in the peloton relatively fresh all day, so there's enough firepower to bring him back relatively quickly.
Danny Navarro for Cofidis might bring some cheer after race leader Nasser Bouhanni decided to step off the bike. Not quite sure what the reason is, but I think it's basically just too hilly. Simple as that. And nice to see Also being guided in is Esteban Chavez, the young Colombian whose broad smile graced the Vuelta last year. He's back in Spain, and he is here.
It was actually Menkes that crashed.
Thought so. It looked very much like him, and that is a real shame. Thought Louis had an option today, and clearly he was battling to get into position. He was going to have to do it on his own. Didn't have many teammates around him. All over for him today.
Well, that's the thing. He shouldn't need to have to do that sort of work on his own. He should be taken up there early enough and put in position. It's not his job really to battle for position. His team needs to put enough faith in him to do that. So he's clearly got a bit of work to do in terms of making sure that they do the job for him in the way that he wants them to.
Yeah, sad for Louis Menkes. I would badge him up for today as being a possible on some of the more explosive, demanding climbs that we've got today. Right now it's Wiening, and you'll see in a few moments that most of the vehicles have been called out of the gap because it is so narrow, and these motorcycles will also be there as the pack just round the headland, if you like, and there they are. When a rider steals a glance and sees them bearing down upon him after such a good dig and a fine effort, it's almost heartbreak, isn't it? I think the best thing is just to keep looking ahead. He can't resist looking back. No,
you tend to look back and see where they are. Is it worth persevering with the effort, or do you just sit up and try and recover a bit before they catch you? But we're just turning up into the climb here now, and I think Peter Wiening is going to have to just keep on pressing on as hard as he can to see whether he can salvage something of this day.
So, as we're on the final climb today, who's your pick?
Wow.
You want to have a think, obviously.
I want to have a think. I did say I did say before I was going to go with Zakarin, but I actually think I'm going to put down Geraint Thomas for this.
Gosh, you just take your time, will you?
Well, it's an important decision to make, Carlton.
All right, you take G. I think that's. I don't know why I let you pick first every time, because I really think that Geraint Thomas is the man. Do you know what? I'm going to fall in behind you today, just for the sake of having an alternative. I'll go away from Sky and Quintana. 25 seconds now. He did pull it out a bit. It's because there's been a general knocking back by Sky. Everyone's compressed here, as you can see. The nodding style of Dan Martin. He's got some options for today for Etixx-QuickStep. How glorious would that be? So many big names are here, though. And what about Fabio Ru? He's actually going better at the top of the season than he normally does, and he's had a more gentle plan of his hello, I am cycling, decide that they're going to engage the incline.
Well, they've been quite attacking so far this year, and they certainly look like they want to continue with that. So yeah, why not just go for it?
Yes, indeed. If you possibly can, then do so. It's Weiss, I think. No, beg your pardon. It is Jarelson, the Colombian. Well, it might be a Colombian festival today if Quintana does his job, and Esteban Chavez likewise. Jarelson Pantano has just decided to try and strike out and bridge over to Peter Wiening in the first instance. No great response. Now, Sky are known for setting a tempo and then unleashing themselves. It's clear that that's the plan today. Maybe they just don't want to be anyone's fools.
No, I think they want to keep control of this all the way up to the finish. So they're just holding it for until they think that they can go full gas all the way up to the top. And early part of the season is always a bit difficult to sort of know how well am I climbing, how well are my teammates climbing. They're riders that they haven't potentially raced with before in the lineup. What can they do? How well are my sort of main competitors going? And certainly with this being such a star-struck field, it could potentially be one of these where they end up looking at each other a bit too much.
10 kilometres to go. Sky have done much of the chasing today. We've got Peter Wiening up the road. He's just been joined by Pantano, the Colombian from I Am Cycling. They've got a modest gap at the moment. In fact, Pantano's not quite bridged over to Wiening. There you can see Pantano just rounding this little hairpin. There are plenty of those to come. The most crucial one will be at with only 100 metres to go before the line. There is the long hair just poking out from underneath the helmet of Rigoberto Urán, who's still very much there. Sky have knocked it right back. It's destabilised everybody and then mobbed across the road. It almost looks like a herd of sheep being guided up the mountain, but leading them a merry dance for now is Gerald Pantano. The Colombian takes a glance at the camera and thinks, are they really not chasing me? Well, not for the time being anyway. They're sort of matching cadence, and it's started to open up. Dimension Data, I think, have decided to roll the dice as well. Cameron Meyer then, perhaps, with 10k to go. Kudus, I beg your pardon, or Igor Anton, perhaps. The bridge is made right now. Not great quality pictures and the sun flaring, so I believe it is either Anton or I think it's Anton that's made the break over for Dimension Data. Couldn't quite see it. It was flared for us, I'm afraid. Maybe your monitors at home are a little bit better than the ones we're having to deal with. But 10k's to go, and Peter Weening still out there, I believe, on a hiding to nothing. But stranger things have happened.
Well, they certainly have done, but I think it's pretty much game over at this point. And with Pantano, whilst putting a bit of pressure on, not really any massive response from the peloton, but it will come at some point very, very soon.
Here we are. So Pantano is out there, so is Weening. 10k's to go. It's a bit of a grind, this climb. 4.5 kilometres, 4.5 average, but 8% maximum.
That looks like Verbeek.
And most of them, most of those major inclines are on the turn. There's Weening.
Well, that looked like Luis Verbeek, who decided to go from the bunch and put the pressure on. And I think he's potentially a man that they need to keep a bit of an eye on.
Well, let's see. There is Weening up the road for Rompot in the orange. He's had a terrific run today, but I believe it's going to count for naught. There's very few areas of respite. There are some of them along the way, but they almost knock the rhythm, which is at the moment being set and imposed by Team Sky. They have exchanged duties, I think it's fair to say, and that ticker is stuck at 10 for quite some time. And there is your man, Louis Verwijk, and it's our young rider, so sorry for the confusion calling it for Dimension Data. The white jersey is being worn with pride by this man.
It certainly is. He did a great ride the first day, and did an impressive attack then, and he's certainly looking good on this climb here.
Well, he certainly is. He's got a lot about him, this man. It's great to see. You never quite know when is going to be the moment that you really start to concentrate on riders such as Verwijk. He's only 22 years of age, we remind you. A couple of years ago, he sort of burst into our consciousness with the Ronde des Arts, but he's held on to this young rider's jersey with great aplomb, showing that he can go quickly as well as up the mountains at a moment such as this anyway.
Well, if you can ride JC on Ronde des Arts, that's based in the deep into the Pyrenean countries. You got to be climbing well then. So there's no doubt about it. Maybe a year or two at this level, and then
he was only 20 then as well.
Yeah. So I think it takes you a couple of years to find the strength to climb with the best guys in certainly at this level. But I think Louis Verwijk is certainly on his way towards that now.
Well, he's sitting up. You see the pack just rounding the last hairpin as well, and he's unzipped that young rider's classification jersey. In fact, this is Pantano. No, it is Verwijk. Beg your pardon. Pantano's back in. He's been reabsorbed. There we are. It's not a terribly distinctive jersey. It's got that little one green badge on the sleeve. That's it to distinguish it.
Actually, not too dissimilar from the leader's jersey.
No, or indeed Dimension Data. So our task is being made more difficult, especially in the flaring sunshine here. So I hope you forgive us today. I hope we haven't misguided you. 9 kilometres to go. It's taking an age to click down. Once they get to 3 to go, so they've got 6 more of climbing. It's still early days as Verwijk stretches his legs once again, but the chase most certainly has been engaged behind. Sky really did almost with glee knock it back and just tempt others to set a pace. Nobody was tempted to do so, and we had a great mobbing of the road and touching of wheels, and accounted for Louis Meintjes today.
Yeah, unfortunately he went down, and it looked like he went down pretty hard as well. So hopefully he's okay and hasn't hurt himself too badly. But regardless of that, it's a bit of a bruised ego, if nothing else, I think, today. It was a day that Louis was definitely gunning for, and instead he's ended up on the floor.
Michael Barry amongst you confirming that what we know, that yes, Louis on the deck. Thanks for your thoughts, by the way, today. Who's Madness is in the pack. He's going for Quintana today. Chavez sounds interesting. I think Chavez has an interest today.
Chavez will definitely be a danger man today, I think.
I think so too.
Certainly with that kick with about 500-600 meters to go, I think he'll suit him quite well.
It may well be that Sky go slightly long today in order to try and neutralise that. In fact, the pace that they were setting earlier on, it really has thinned down. That's a very select group considering the level that we've brought to this race, is it not?
It's still a lot bigger than I expected at this point in the race. I was thinking that Sky would have put a lot more into it right at an early point of this particular climb.
About 40-50 riders left amongst the main body. A lot of snow still lining the road here. The action, though, is warmer than that, and Verwijk is warming to the challenge. He's just sailed by Peter Weening, and the youngster, Louis Verwijk, who leads the young riders classification. He's going for this, and he's setting a decent cadence, but just look at the mob. It's not that far behind. The peloton are going to take him, and he has a look over his shoulder and thinks, how much can I invest in this? Do I want to? And his cadence changes.
Well, he's going to have to want to. He committed to an attack, and he's definitely going to keep on pushing on this one for as long as he can. Although the pace is certainly being picked up now that Mikel Nieve is on the front for Team Sky, and they're now starting to set this up for their big guns to make the attack. And we should not forget about Poels in Team Sky as well, who's been climbing very well in the beginning of the season. He's a man, another card that they potentially have to play.
Tejay van Garderen is usually very good at this part of the season. Skip Tirreno, essentially, and he is here. And BMC have just brought themselves into position. Defending champion, we remind you, is Richie Porte, who was third in Paris-Nice, so he's on stellar form as well. And the men in the red and black are starting to just engage as well. You can see them on the right-hand side of the road. Also embedded are Cannondale. We'll see who they bring to the fun. They've got Iran, they've got Formolo, they've got Michael Woods. So choices for Cannondale as well. And Orica still have not abandoned at all Esteban Chavez. They're doing a lot of work to get him into position. But Sky still foremost amongst our concern. And that indeed of this man, Louis Verwijk, who constantly looks over his shoulder. And he's starting to weave across the road. And I think he said to himself, thank you very much, but not today.
Yeah, I think he's still going to have to press on a bit, but I think he's realised that Team Sky are coming, and they're coming with force as well. So it's just a question of how much more energy do I waste on this one. But it's no real point in backing off completely, but just ride within yourself, ride controlled, use the power meter that he's got on his bike to control his effort, and with that he just looks down to see where he's sitting.
Haven't really mentioned Contador today. Tinkoff are here, and they have plenty of hands to help out, of which Contador, you can see him just dancing on the pedals. He again is surprisingly and on extraordinary form in his final season, maybe not surprisingly. So how will he go? He's just backing on to Team Sky at the moment. And all the answers are going to come in the next 7 kilometres. Let's just talk about this approach then, forensically. With 3 to go, they go down into a dip all the way down, so they'll descend. It'll be pretty fast down to the 2k out marker. Then they start a series of steps, which are steps because of hairpins. The very nasty one with 500 metres to go, they'll take 7% average. Once they go around the hairpin there, they will have, what about 150 metres to go. Still a final hairpin to the line, but it will be at least downhill round the hairpin and then home. So it's up and down right until the very last, but they're still solidly climbing until they get to 3 from home. So 4k's time is where the fun really begins. I imagine the fireworks will possibly be lit before that. Sky have burned a few personnel. They've got a few at the front, including Geraint Thomas, and of course Chris Froome, still very much to the fore.
Yeah, still very much sitting up there in control of the bunch, but it's Mikel Nieve who's setting the pace at the moment. They still got Wout Poels in there to do his turn. But yeah, all of the favourites, you can see them all lining up there now with Quintana.
Dan Martin still very much in the on the wheel. There he is. His familiar sort of nodding style, just behind Alberto Contador, who could, I guess, to some cause an upset today. But it wouldn't be a surprise that he imposes himself this early in the race with the big Queen stage to come tomorrow to Porte. Contador is there. He's looking fresh. He's got no teammates around him. That's Chavez just in front of him as well, the diminutive Colombian from Orica Green Edge. So many riders with options today, and Danny Navarro for Cofidis could well do it in the absence of Nasser Bouhanni, the sprinter, who of course has backed out of this race. A little bit more leash being allowed to Louis Vervaeke as he takes it with 6 to go. This is not the top of the lip, as it were, but we're approaching it right now before that little bowl and then a kick up for our finale.
Yeah, it's still some hard kilometres to do on this race, but Louis Vervaeke still pressing on and riding quite strongly there. He's not been caught by Team Sky, who sort of look like they've just settled in for the pace where they're at the moment. They're not really doing any monster turns on the front.
He had to go round the motorbike then, which is an unkind thing to make a rider do, but he does sail by, and we're getting a view of just how smooth he is at the moment. He's doing a terrific job, this young man. Only 22, we remind you, and an animated crowd welcoming him with 6Ks remaining. He's going to be over the lip and into the bowl before you know it.
Well, they had a 5 kilometre to go banner there on the side of the road. I'm not quite sure. I think that's up to the top of the to the king of the mountain.
So categorising then dipping down. It is an uphill finish. I think the categorisation comes at the line, but it may well be that the Airbridge man has done his job. These guys yet to perform. Can Vervaeke do something absolutely outstanding? He'll need a lot of resources to do so, and the way the tongue is being shown to us right now, I think he's near the absolute end of the aforementioned, I'm afraid. Let's have a look.
He's certainly riding on his limit, there's no question about that one, but I'm not thinking that that's enough today, I'm afraid.
Yes, I'm afraid you're probably right. Having a look back, he's actually pulled out a gap yet again, but that's due to a hiatus, and it looks like Contador has actually did it up. Is he just behind? No, I beg your pardon. Couldn't see the Sky Boys because of the darkness. Let's see who is there. They're starting to think about rolling with the punches. Who's going to take it on? Who's going to take it on?
Well, that's a good question, but Contador wouldn't be a bad idea for the first attack. He's usually quite keen on lighting things up. The problem with this climb, though, is that it's not so steep, so it's difficult to really make a big difference. Certainly on your own, if you were to go away in a group of 2-3, and you can actually help each other take turns. But these guys are climbing at close to 30 kilometers an hour here, certainly at some points, and with that, it's very hard to really make a big difference quickly.
This is, I'm afraid, all over for Louis Vervaeke. Just look at how quickly they are approaching. There are some massive names here. We still got Uran, we've got Contador, we've got Chavez from Orica Green Edge, we've got, of course, Froome, Geraint Thomas, he's still got Nieve. Wout Poels have been doing a fantastic job just dragging him up the mountain. More than that, he looks comfortable. Dan Martin is in the house as well. This year, of course, with Etixx-QuickStep, and he has been hugging the wheel of Alberto Contador. When you say these names, you realise it's just a stellar field, and you're absolutely right. Still engaged is Bardet. Pozzovivo not at home, but there is Bardet in the brown and white. Looking further back as well, you see the red of BMC, and Lotto haven't finished playing the game either, and here comes Katusha.
Zakarin.
Now, it is Zakarin. Tarame, they've gotten Rodriguez, but it looks like Zakarin is going to be their choice, or maybe he's just, well, Dan Martin is on the wheel of Zakarin. Zakarin in the red. There's Dan Martin as well with his hunched shoulders, and Quintana sails in behind Team Sky, taking a little bit of a break. It's Contador has just backed off ever so slightly. This was a group of 60. It's now down to about 25, including Oran as well, with 4 kilometres to go. Oran in the lime green of Cannondale is also in the house, and there's some other options as well. Amandia for Cairo Oral, etc. They roll with it, and there we get a sight of Contador as well, who looks disturbingly relaxed.
Yeah, he certainly does look relaxed on his bike. There's a couple of other faces who look relatively relaxed as well.
Kudus is in the house for Dimension Data as well. The Eritrean just sails round onto the wheel of Contador. It seems to be the chosen wheel at the moment. Change of cadence at the barriers for BMC, who I think are possibly starting to think about engaging here.
Well, that's Tejay van Garderen coming up near the front as well. So with 4 kilometres to go, they're all starting to think of how to set up this finish and how they're going to actually try and win the stage.
Well, it's Froome just ahead of G. I think G, that's Geraint Thomas, is protecting Chris Froome's back wheel just for the time being. It's a long game, this. They come over the lip and down into the bowl, so they'll be able to put some power back in the legs. Now, this begs a response from those who are given to explosive turns of pace.
Well, it certainly does. It's going to be an interesting one to see now, because they've left it very, very late to battle it out for this particular stage. And I'm not sure that Chris Froome is the best man for today's finish, and although you're saying that Geraint Thomas is currently sort of protecting Chris's back wheel, I think they actually got Geraint as their man for today's finish.
I think you're right. So they roll in then. This is that little roller coaster I was telling you. It'll go to about the 2 kilometres to go marker. So they're driving into all of the corners. You can see how it's strung out. Sky have done a great job at this. They've been doing some terrific descending work, but Contador is on the shoulder of Chris Froome at the moment, showing that he's there. Tejay van Garderen is also there. Esteban Chavez is there. Everybody you care to think of almost is here. It's an amazing stellar field for this finale. So they're going to bounce at the 2K marker, and then they start climbing again. The most focused part of it is with about 500 metres to go. This is an extraordinary pace after a climbing day on this approach.
Well, it certainly is, and very fast descent as well. But Sky doing very well in keeping control of the front of the race. And with these corners now, the motorbike's going to have to get out of the way very, very quickly.
He is, and in fact, get himself into almost a whole world of trouble there. The riders can take these curves a lot quicker than the big heavy motorcycle, who's counterbalancing, don't forget, the motorcycle pilot, the cameraman who's bringing you these pictures. So, but don't be too hard on them. But nonetheless, don't want them to be an element of the race that shouldn't be. Across the bridge they go, and they almost caught the motorcycle again, who just cranks in a bit of pace to get away from them, essentially. And now we're about to start climbing, and well, it's opening it up. It is Poles, the leggy figure of Wout Poels, who's going for a long one, and I think this is a bid for glory, and Contador's wise to it. He goes off the nose, as you can see, drags in Zakarin as well, and here comes Quintana, and Chris Froome's not giving up. Bardet's also in the frame. There, the rangy figure of Oran is also here for Cannondale. If they knock back the pace here, somebody is going to try and mug the field, and it's Quintana who goes over to the barrier. He goes over that side. Who's going to stay with him? Zakarin nails it. So does Contador, back in the seat for Team Sky, and I don't think they are mooded to engage with this, but they're going to have no choice.
No, definitely not. Chris Froome is not looking all that comfortable with all these different accelerations. He looked really in the spot of bother right at the start when Wout Poels went.
G's there. So is Oran significantly, and Tejay goes for it over the other side, having a look for it right now. Richie Porte wants to get a part of the day too, and here we are, final kilometre. Could this be an absolute revelation, I guess, or at least an underscoring perhaps?
Well, certainly that was a very strong attack by Richie Porte, but all the big favourites are wise to it, and Chris Froome is, well, he spotted Richie Porte going and went straight after him.
TJ's about man 8 at the moment, and he's thinking about their top and tailing and bullying the field, and here goes Bardet. He goes over to the side of the road. Quintana marks him out. So does Chris Froome, has refound it. Chris Froome has picked up something here, head down and going for it. They come over the lip. It's going to be a sprint to the line. Who's got what it takes here? It could be just about any of these guys. It's Quintana that lights it up. He's going right now, and nobody this time, I think, is is minded to go with him. It's the steepest part of it, 7% for this last 500 metres, and here it comes. Quintana goes for it. Oh, and they pick up, and Dan Martin wants a piece of the day. He's done this before this season. He did it earlier on, and he's going to go again. Dan hits the front, and I don't think anyone's going to be able this time to mark out Dan Martin, are they? They try to do so and close the gap, but he's punching a hole in the air, and he is sailing away. Dan Martin, can he? It's about 3 bike lengths he's got right now. Don't forget, they will suddenly be upon the finish line. 300 metres now.
Well, Tejay van Garderen looks like he's riding within himself, just holding Dan Martin at this pace. Contador on his wall. Now goes Contador.
Dan goes again. He's trying to grind into this one, and suddenly he'll come home. There's the final hairpin. 150 metres to go. Quintana's there, and Dan Martin's going to pick up yet more scalps, I believe. He holds it out of the saddle. Likewise is Contador, but Dan Martin is coming home for an absolute belter here. Dan Martin does it once more. He's in stellar form. And an explosive rider it had to be. Contador comes across the line. Bardet, Tejay van Garderen. Oh, Richie, Porte, Quintana. Oh my goodness, what a day we've had. And Dan Martin is king of the hill.
Well, that was an impressive final 500 metres by Dan Martin. He just kind of picked his way through the bunch, let everyone do their work and go for the attacks, and then right at the perfect moment he unleashed everything he had, and that's an impressive win by Dan Martin.
You beauty.
Very disappointing though with Team Sky and their efforts on this final kilometre or so. They just didn't have anything to respond with on this explosive type of finish.
Well, Dan Martin is having a magnificent season. Remember what he did in Valencia, into Fredes? He's only gone and done it again, for goodness sake. Dan Martin switched teams and said it felt a bit strange, to be honest. He just fancied a change. Change as good as a rest. And there was Dan Martin, and there was the rest. Well,
he's a class bike rider, and he's always seemed to be going very well at this time of the year. You know, he focuses very hard on the Volta Catalunya, because he lives down in Girona, and it's his home race kind of thing. So, but it's still very, very impressive to be able to repeat that year upon year and come back here and be competitive. So, well done, Dan Martin.
Well, the Volta Comunidad at Valencia, the Ruta del Sol, he did an absolutely outstanding job there into Fredes. And he's done it again, but in more elevated company than he beat that day, to be honest. We've seen a lot of Dan Martin at the early part of the season. It bodes very well for him. As, you know, he had some great names behind him then, but nothing like today. Dan, you are a marvel, mate. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was very good indeed. Just the final couple of kilometers or certainly the final kilometer was very interesting, seeing all the guys, the big guys, kind of staring at each other. And got to say, look, I'm a bit disappointed in terms of how Team Sky handled that one. I was expecting them to go harder earlier to really put the pressure on some of the more explosive type of climbers. But there you go. Well done to Dan Martin anyway.
Dan Martin takes the day ahead of Alberto Contador, Romain Bardet, Tejay van Garderen, Richie, Porte, Formolo, Zakarin, Froome, Carthy, Rigoberto around. There are some monster names in here. And, well, the man who feasted upon them all was Dan Martin today.
Nice ride by Hugh Carthy as well.
Fantastic ride by Hugh Carthy, finishing just behind Chris Froome. Right for Caja Rural, the young man. It's great to see the Brit stretching his legs, and that's a top 10 finish that he can be very, very, very proud of.
Yeah, he certainly can be. It's I mean, he's been on the cards to go well for some time in this type of terrain. So it's just nice to see that he's finally managed to make it up there.
Well, we're just waiting to see if we can get a word with Dan Martin, but just talk us through the last here, final kilometre.
Well, Quintana definitely went hard and put everyone in trouble. Chris Froome going after him, but just didn't have the legs and have the explosiveness. But even Dan Martin even makes Quintana look like he's a second-hand man in that position there, and just manages to continue. And even though he sees Tejay, I mean, it's only a couple of bike lengths off him. He just doesn't sit up and give up on his effort. He committed to that, and he was going to the line regardless of what was happening around him. Even Contador, thought he looked for a minute there like he was starting to close down on Dan Martin, but there was no one else in the final 300-400 meters, and you got to take your hat off to Dan Martin. That is a fantastic ride.
It's just imposing yourself at absolutely the correct moment on a day that was designed to suit you. Well, having designs on victory is one thing and delivering it is another. And today Dan Martin has delivered. Some very well anchored inflatables today. They're going to need to be because the wind is picking up. As you can see, they've had to disengage the hoarding banners so that they don't blow the barriers out of shape. Let's just while we're waiting on Hugh Carthy. He's only 21 years of age. He's riding out of Spain with Caja Rural, and today Hugh has done an amazing job to, frankly, produce a stellar top 10 finish, one of the best rides of his career, and it's been a decent career full stop. 9th in the US Pro Challenge last year, and he went on to well, he'd done some great things in career as well. This is while we ponder that, here is your overall standings. We have a new leader. It's Dan Martin. He's got a 6-second margin over Alberto Contador after today's mountain finish. It's a tall order to do it again to Port Ain tomorrow. We have some especial climbs. Who will be special on that day? You're going to have to tune in and find out. But Magnus, I'm very much looking forward to it.
It's going to be an interesting day. There's no doubt about that. There's a couple of big names that are chasing Dan Martin there, and no doubt they're going to want to shift down from the top of the leaderboard.
Wow, so it's your overall mountain standings as well, I can tell you. Dan Martin third in that classification, but he's not bothered. He's got the leader's jersey, and today he was the daddy. Well, it bodes well for a very, very good race. Some holes then in the Team Sky Armoury. Some names that to conjure with, like Hugh Carthy and some others as well, as we go deeper into this race. And tomorrow we go deep and mountain high, do we not?
Well, we certainly do. It's going to be a big stage of climbing. There's no doubt about that. And as soon as you go up on these special climbs or especials, then all sorts of different things happen to the riders, and obviously with the weather as well, that we're going to have to deal with the cold and everything else. So I think this race is far from over, and I think tomorrow is going to be the really interesting day out of this whole week, just to see who's got it and who's not.
And who's got it and who's not is what everyone wants to find out. The riders themselves, which is why the Volta Catalunya, the Tour of Catalunya, is on your screens every day, same time, same place, with myself, Carlton Kirby, and of course Magnus Backstead. Wow, what a day. It was sheer drama, and we will have more of the same tomorrow. 3 enormous climbs, 1 category 1, 2 specials, and a special uphill to finish us off